Hello and welcome to another episode of Virtual Coffee with Ashish. Today's episode is all about OT networks and IT networks. And what is the difference? It's funny, before I met this guest, I always had this assumption that all these industries that exist outside of the general tech environment of Facebook and Google and all that, I always used to wonder how IT affects those organizations. And I was finally able to find someone who could give me an answer for this and a bit more in the public cloud space. I have Parul Kharub with me, and I think it'll be. Oh, you know what? Why am I talking about it? Let me just bring her online, and we'll get into this. But before I bring her on, just quickly, this is a weekly on-demand cybersecurity show. We stream live to LinkedIn, Twitch, YouTube, and even the Facebook page for Cloud Security Podcast. If you guys are there, we come up with a new episode with a new guest every week, and it's topics around cloud security, DevSecOps, AppSec, and OT networks and IT networks now. So I'm gonna bring on Parul, and we can get straight into this. Hi, Parul.
Hey Ashish, how are you?
What's your audio? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
You might want to pick the audio. I think if you just pick the audio setting on yours, I can't hear you anymore.
All right, hold on. Uh, Can you hear me now?
Good. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect. Maybe jump off and jump back in again.
Okay.
While Shiva comes back, I just want to quickly talk about a bit more about the show, because clearly it's a Virtual Coffee with Ashish show, and it's live, so anything happens. And while we are trying to figure this out in our network, oh, there you go. There she's back again.
Can you hear me
Hi
now?
there. Can you still? For some reason I can't hear your audio, but you can hear me though, right? One second. Let me just quickly check.
I definitely can. Yep.
No, that's
Hello,
me.
hello. Testing.
Weird. Let me. Okay.
All right. How about now?
No.
No?
That is so funny.
Okay. What's up?
Clearly, there's like some kind of a magic mystery
Yes.
happening over here. Let me just do this. Let me just stop this and come back in again. Let me just gonna stop the broadcast and come back in again. Or are you trying to unplug your microphone? Let's see what happens next time. Still waiting on the live thing. By the way, so as I was saying before we kind of end this, it's always oh, there she is again. Hi.
Hi Ashish, can you hear me now?
Nope, I still can't hear you. Weird. I could hear you earlier. Let me stop the live and I'll do it again. Let's try again. 1 second. Oh, actually interesting. No, so Nagesh can hear you and they can't hear me. That's even more weirder. Wait, 1 second.
Hi Ashish, I can't hear you.
Can you say something now? Or can you hear me? Oh, this is interesting. Hello?
Hello. Can you hear me, Ashish?
That was me.
Oh, can you hear
say
me?
something? Oh my god, that was me. Thank you, Nagesh, on the oh my god, that was me.
We just
That was
resolved
me
the
all.
problem for future? I think we did.
I think it was on cloud. That would have been so much more easier. This should have been on the cloud.
It's
Anyway,
okay.
but this was a great start, by the way. I love this. I'm gonna record this as one of those moments in my show where I embarrass myself because I was the person between the computer and the guest who was wrong, and not the guest themselves. So this is
Oh,
going to be
thank God.
interesting from that perspective. Yeah, it wasn't you. It was totally not you, and I'm thankful to Nagesh who was on this, I guess, on the comment saying he can hear you and I can. I'm like, why can't I hear you? Clearly a gone jab. Anyways, welcome
Welcome
to the show.
Thank you very much, Ashish.
We finally made it happen. By the way, cheers.
Yes, I do have my coffee mug, and actually, I always have my mugs according to how I'm
Oh,
feeling today. So I'm feeling pretty nice. It's Saturday here. I'm in Calgary, and I can't be thankful enough that it's a weekend. So cheers.
cheers to that. Cheers to a Saturday as
Yes.
well. It's funny, it's Sunday over here,
Hmm.
but it's
Oh, okay. So you know
I'm
what?
talking to you from the future.
Just to balance out your little fiasco there, what happened? So I've been having crazy work schedules off lately. So what happened yesterday? I was watching this movie, and something happened in that movie, and the date kind of struck my mind, and I was like, "Hey, is coffee with Ashish tomorrow or day after tomorrow?" And I literally came back running upstairs from my basement, and
Oh
I
yeah.
checked my calendar. And I was like, oh no, it's tomorrow. And I would have literally like passed it away just thinking that it's on Sunday, because you keep saying that it's Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. It's kind
Yep.
of like got into my mind, and I started to think it's my Sunday as well. Thank God I saw that.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Otherwise,
I'm glad we clarified that. Yes, that's
yeah.
for sure. But so Parul, for people who don't know you, I guess
Yes.
who is Parul and what is she doing in this world of OT IT? So who is Parul for
Absolutely.
people who don't know you?
Yes, Ashish, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name is Parul, as you can already tell. And I'm originally from India. That's where I actually completed my bachelor's in computer sciences and engineering with focus on absolutely computers, but also artificial intelligence towards the end. And that's where I completed my research work in expert systems as well. And right after that, I got into my first job, and that's where I started my career as a software developer, where I was literally hands on coding in C Sharp and Microsoft SQL websites and all the cool stuff. But very soon I realized that my attention was actually kind of getting driven to the other side, or the underworld of software. That's what I call cyber. uh,
Right,
yeah, where at that point, so I'm talking about like early 21st century, where validations and verifications were only used to be done from a functionality standpoint, but not really security. And I'm just talking about Fortune 500 here. And that's when I started to research in this field. And soon after, I got myself involved into configuration management. That's where,
yep,
things start to get worse and can actually cause big cybersecurity gaps in the software side of the world. So followed by that, I shifted some gears, and very initial stages of my career, I quit my job. I moved to New York. I That's where I pursued my master's from in information systems management with concentration on cybersecurity.
oh
And
nice.
yes, so that was like kind of my, well, just probably taking a little step back. In my first job, I actually had identified kind of an access related issues in how the turnstiles work in offices. So my badge wouldn't read on those turnstiles, and they were actually I was actually absconding. That's what exactly my status was showing. I was
Right,
absconding for straight 2.5 months, where people were literally searching for me, and I was right there and working with everyone else, like even talking to some of the HRs in the meanwhile. And that's where I actually got into the office one day and said, hey, this could be something wrong with those things. And that's exactly where it just hit my mind. And it was actually right in the beginning of the job itself, so like two and a half
ooh,
months ish in the job.
wow, you're pretty brave as well. And by the way, I just want to give you a heads up. I've got
Yes.
Dr. Abdullah watching this as well. He's a fan of. He's got his own PhD, and he's a fan of the OT network as well. So I'm sure.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so I'm
I'm
gonna basically be grilled down today. No, Ashish, I wasn't
well,
ready for that.
no, you'll be safe. He's a good guy. He's a good guy. So you'll be
Oh,
safe. But
thank you
may-
very much, doctor. I appreciate your time today. And it's not just me gonna be sharing those things. I would love to hear some from you and the other audiences as well.
awesome, awesome. Yeah, we definitely want to make it more of a two-way conversation as well. The
Yep.
first question I normally go for is
Yeah.
more with obviously it's cloud security podcast as well. So what does cloud security mean for you?
So I think cloud security is something that's I always say to people is like the next era of security and or technology itself, where not only it's going to bring the number of human involvement down, but also going to create those challenges in terms of security, to make sure if humans are not really involved up to that level, how are we going to control it? So as cloud has gotten its way through or into technology and gotten into all the automation and the automatic scaling and all those fancy stuff
Yep.
going on, I think it's very important to realize the fact that now we are talking about velocity as well and not just security. So we also need to think in terms of security to not cause slow down of velocity of on from that pace perspective that things might be running on cloud. And now is the time we should be thinking about those automatic control versus having to go back and fixing code ourselves. So that's where I really wanted to, I personally I connect those two together, and I see that as an opportunity for getting that innovation done in security as well.
Oh, and do you work on a particular public cloud, or is it just a
I do.
multi-cloud?
I do. I actually work on the three major one: AWS, Google, as well as Azure.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
And obvious question for people, because I guess we have an audience who may not be aware. Like, I think was not aware of how the complexity of OT environments work before
Yeah.
this conversation. So, for people who don't know, what's an OT environment and how is it different from an IT environment?
Yes, absolutely. So I think it would be nice if I, just quickly glance over the IT provisions itself, which is all about computing technology, starting from the back end, the front end, and all sort of different web technologies, including like day-to-day use or business transactions. And the best examples are like customer relationship management software, enterprise resource planning, or human capital management, or anything that could be run on those software or the website based technologies.
That's
Whereas
right.
operational technology is actually a very fine conglomeration of computing, which is IT, and communication systems on top of it, which actually monitor and manage industrial process assets in terms of both processes as well as those manufacturing slash industrial physical devices or equipments per se. And I'm more than happy to go over those. I have a very nice example in my mind that I would like to share, just to understand those
Sure. Yeah,
physical
because I think
devices or equipment.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because I'm thinking more like nuclear devices and energy devices, but
Well,
you can give me a better example, I
it
guess.
definitely, I would say it's definitely part of it because okay, let's think about OT in a manner of wherever machines are involved. I would call that as an OT, where
Right.
like physical devices are present that would constitute towards that operational technology or operational technology environment. So the examples that we use this term industrial control systems versus information technology for operational side of things, under which there could be different physical devices like SCADA systems, which is
Yep.
supervisory controls and data acquisition systems, the distributed control systems or HMIs, which is human machine interface, or PLCs, or process control networks, and so on and so forth. But just to describe one of them, which is SCADA systems. That's actually one of the industrial control systems, which is a communication network based controller that controls coupling between the software components like actuators, sensors, physical processes, and is excuse me, used to control infrastructure processes and human management of essential commodities versus services. For example, consumable products like electricity or gas that comes from a power plant, or it could be as simple as a water treatment plant, or it could also control the facility based processes at airports, space stations, ships. And that's exactly where I said that you're right in mentioning the nuclear power stations. So it, it's just something very simple to very complex that, when I actually got my attention to operational technology a couple of years back, it was pretty eye opener when, my first, like, few of my very initial clients were actually ranging from a cereal company to actually like a pharmaceutical company or even like automobile, where
Right.
manufacturing plays such a big role that it actually was really like a surprise, like, oh, okay, OT, like this term OT is actually pretty real. So that's how I would probably define the difference. And actually, something just clicked my mind. Just think in terms of connecting ourselves to the outside world. I call it as IT, but something
Right.
that's more focused in a given range or of an industry or a field would be OT.
Oh, and I think there is one thing more. I guess one thing more that I would like to get into is a difference where when it comes to IoT devices as well. But we'll probably get towards the end of it.
Sure.
I want to. I don't. Um, how is the public cloud space affecting OT and IT environments?
So, cloud to me always start with thinking in terms of OPEX and CAPEX, which is operational expense and capital expense, where, both of these things became a very important part when it came to moving IT to the cloud. So IT has definitely been turning tables in terms of transitioning or migrating to cloud to minimize their on-premise assets.
Yep.
However, in OT, things are a bit different, especially because of its nature of having to do so much with physical devices that taking them all together to cloud is still kind of a concept. However, the underlying technologies like software applications or data on which those machines I mentioned or the sensors are actually running could
Yep.
definitely now be tackled or managed from a cloud, where actually the concept of industry 4.0 comes into play. So if you allow me to quickly share my one of my studies or work that I did back like a couple of years back with a consulting firm. We actually like kind of prepared a study, and it was purely based on how these industries have evolved. So the
Hmm.
first generation of this was when all natural resources were used to generate those essential commodities or electricity or power, like steam engines or any natural resources per se. The second generation was actually got it was the evolution from the natural resources usage into the assembly line or production system supply chain per se. Then third generation was all about computing era or automation, where we started talking about all the fancy words, artificial intelligence, and everything, like all the things like that. But
Yep.
right now we are in the fourth generation, where which we define as the cyber physical systems, or another fancy term here, IoT, which is Internet of Things, which is
Yep.
literally, to me, if we think in a manner where it's connected with those physical to digital systems to take in the data and provide it to the physical systems that are a big part of the OT environment, and then getting the data back to it, which is again converting that physical to digital information to actually do some running, probably on a cloud or anywhere else, to give it
Oh,
back to the
right.
operators to actually
Right.
make those machines move. That's where we are today, and that's what
Right.
you might hear people saying about Industry 4.0.
Oh, so it's not like I think it's such a great example because Industry 4.0 is not about the fact that you can move, say, an entire nuclear plant onto the
No.
cloud, but it's more about the processing of data, or I guess to your point, if something was done on paper, now
Yeah.
it can be done online like that.
Yeah.
That's the so. But if out of curiosity, why would someone move that to the cloud? Like, why move it to the cloud at all?
Well, again, like I said, I think I don't see it happening like in like this year or next year to move those all the physical assets to cloud. But actually, we can definitely think in terms of the 5G long-term evolution, which is 5G LTE, that is
Right.
still being talked about these days a lot, and still in its infant stages. But how we as OT or cyber practitioners see it happening is you know so right now how OT environment is segregated is based on a model called Purdue model, which
Okay.
actually helps define different segments to its network. Like, it starts from level 0, which actually consists of all the processes, then level 1 for the controls, then level 2, 3, and 4. The topmost layer is level 6, which is the
Hmm.
cloud layer. So between those control or the control zone of operational technology and the cloud zone, there are still two more zones. To overcome or to actually cut down on those zones, I think how 5G LT is going to be a difference in a manner that not only it's going to bring that layer down, but it's also going to bring a challenge about how do we make sure that our security controls are so strong enough that it gets hard to break into that one layer. So how I see it happening when they are now talking about reducing those layers in Purdue model, I see more security layers getting added within that one zone, and that's how I see security becoming possible, or even getting to that level when it doesn't cause harm to the OT environment. Because another like thing that I would mention here, it actually is a lot of impact that a failure in OT environment can cause in comparison to impact that an IT failure may cause. And why I say it because people are still so heavily involved in all those fields and all around all those machineries. If something were to go wrong in on a field or in an OT setup, it's not only going to cause business disruption, but it's also it may also cause, like, losing people's lives, which is invaluable, right? So the
Yeah.
impact that comes from this, cyber attacks in an OT environment is altogether, like, it's a different level. Like, it's
Oh,
something like I don't want to compare it with what happened in the, which one was that, the nuclear failure that happened. So it's something
yes.
like similar to some, I
Stuxnet.
think, not Stuxnet. It was not
C-
Petya was one of them, but Stuxnet is a good example as well.
Well, I think it's a good segue into the question Dr. Abdullah is asking. I told you
Oh yeah.
he'll ask a question. He has. It's on
Oh
the
yes,
screen as
absolutely.
well. So some of
Okay.
his question is more around the fact that interesting topic. What are some scenarios of cyber attacks in the industrial network? How do malware get in such secure industrial networks? Just kind of, I think it's related to the one that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I think there's not just one way to getting in. The simplest one I can tell is use, in my experience, and a couple of years back, I did see some companies or industries still using unencrypted, or even allowing people to use their USB devices and having to plug them into directly the control network. So those
Oh,
USB devices could just cause havoc to and they did. There were some attacks or intrusions that happen because of a USB device itself. I don't know how public that information is, so I'm not going to take any names here. But so could be one of those things where the malware can be brought into the USB devices, and it could take access of the whole control network, and then
yeah,
things can go south like in just a couple of seconds. How and Just adding a few to that, it could simply also be social engineering as well. So people at field site are not really they're not really cyber oriented or cyber aware per se, and that's exactly where training and education also play a very big role. That uh, so I am a big fan of mentioning that security is not just security's team's responsibility, it's everyone's responsibility.
yeah,
But to make it everyone's responsibility, there has to be enough awareness created amongst people of the simplest things, of the simplest, most things on earth, like social engineering. If I work on a field and Ashish, you come walking someday and just in, chitting chatting and say, hey, so what's your pet name? And how do you keep your password, or what is your password? And there have been some cases where people were so gullible that they did share their passwords. like
Right.
the adversaries literally got their way into the control network and operational environment, and they literally like brought in malwares or like various kinds of viruses, and they just planted those things into those plants, and things just went crazy after that. So it's,
Oh, right.
I mean, it's the simplest to the craziest things that you can think of that could bring
Yeah.
in those cyber attacks. But hopefully, I answered your question,
Yeah.
Doctor.
And I think it's an interesting point as well, because the impact for this probably, I guess, a follow-up question just around
Yeah.
that, where social engineering, I guess, in a regular technology world of, say, you and I, where, or I guess maybe not you, but me, I guess, because you work in the OT space and I work in the IT space. But in, say, in IT environments,
Yeah.
it's very common for people to walk around, talk about phishing, talk about scams,
Hmm.
but OT environments may not be even getting an email. These are just regular folks walking about in a factory, and they just have access to control systems, and you can just like get the information, just walk into the place, and or maybe meet outside the place or something. I mean,
So
I'm just thinking different social
yeah.
engineering.
No, this is actually good, and it actually got me thinking of another good example. So it's not that OT is like totally separated from IT. There is like a gateway through which we can still, or not we, but the adversaries could get their way into the OT environment. And it actually has there have been some cases that actually kicked off from phishing emails. People were able to steal credentials because they would click on the links, they would provide their credentials, and that's all the adversaries would need to get into various websites or to steal some more data. And just having the most recent ransomware attacks that actually caused, well, it was probably in 2018 that actually caused a company $1 billion loss just by clicking on those emails and like, oh my gosh, my assets are logged and what not all. And people like,
Oh,
even people on those higher levels, which like C-suite people, right, the CEOs or
yeah,
chief technology officers, they're like, I mean, to me, they're the most educated people. But again, from a cyber standpoint, anyone could get prey to those very tricky emails or those tricks and plots by our adversaries. So I think a refresher of knowledge and education is always a good thing to do from all different levels of people, like from the C-suite level to an employee level and to the admins.
interesting. And I think to your point about if there's an obvious connection between IT and OT environments, and
Yeah.
obviously every, I guess, control system, or I guess an industry like this, they obviously have corporate security as well. You almost have three versions of it, I guess. One would be um, as simple as, oh, okay, I need security for Parul, who's a staff.
Hmm.
And then another is I need a software security for applications that I'm using or my staff is using. That's another version of IT. But then there's a whole another space of, like, I feel like almost any energy sector, or I guess any control system environment has almost three environments:
Right.
corporate security, IT security, and then there is the, I guess, OT security. How do
Yeah.
they all like get? How do they manage all that and the complexity, and how do they connect together? Usually, from the common patterns you may have seen.
Right. So I think I have done many security strategies from purely IT oriented to OT to also a convergence to IT and OT where they were made part of the major corporate strategy itself. Again, like I said in the beginning, OT was introduced in my purview of cyber world in a couple of years back, where uh, there were some major industrial organization in the involved stakeholders that weren't even fully versed with the terminology OT. And I'm not lying about it. It's like really serious because we have had conversations with CEOs and CIOs in the room, and just having that socialization and making them realize of the fact that there is this thing OT that also needs cyber attention. And that's
Right.
exactly where a lot of people in change management was also required. But coming back to your previous question, I think to me, it all ties back to the security triad, which is CIA security triad, right?
Yeah.
Confidentiality, integrity, availability. But I would
Yeah.
add another factor to it, which is safety of people
Okay.
working in the OT environment, right? So when it comes to OT, I think safety plays a lot bigger role. So just thinking about those four factors, I think. Talking from a strategy standpoint, corporate strategy sits on top where cloud strategy is just one cloud or OT or IT strategy becomes like components to it. So we have to work from a top down approach to start thinking about what are the major components that are driving factors to an organization business or how it's going to make a difference to uh, divide IT versus OT and define your strategy or next step for a couple of years down the lane in those terms, and what kind of controls should be included. So the best example that I can think of where IT, OT, and cloud are all involved is DevSecOps.
All
So
right.
how in cloud, when applications are migrated or people now have started developing their applications right on the cloud, and they keep talking about those fancy words like CI/CD pipeline, like continuous integration and continuous development and
Deployments.
deployment. Sorry, yeah. So that's exactly where we need to think of how to shift security left, which is simply introducing security at each and every early stages of developing that software. So how this the overall software development life cycle is like this, the requirement phase, the design phase, the testing phase. I
Yep.
see security getting involved in very early stages, where when we are talking about requirements, we also need to ensure that we are talking about security requirements as well, versus having to let them develop the software and deploy it on the
Wait, so
cloud.
just to be clear, we're talking about software for control systems or software in general?
So no, I'm just giving you an example of like DevOps and how security can be involved and how it can
Oh.
impact OT environment.
So wait, is DevOps happening in the OT environments as well? As
So
in,
it's okay. So DevOps, so OT environment, like I said, is a conglomeration of software and physical devices. So the software side of it actually is responsible for driving those physical devices, right? There are underlying applications that are running the human the HMIs, the human machine interfaces, and all the other machines. There is heavy data that's involved in driving those machines in performing their jobs or their tasks, right? So
right.
those applications become the driving factor to actually run those devices as well, right? So if those applications are not set for success in terms of security, it's going to cause harm to those devices as well, right?
Wow, interesting. And I think causing harm, Dr. Abdullah also has another question.
Yes, please.
So what are the solutions and products currently being applied for industrial network? What are these existing products actually doing? Are they effective to prevent such ICS cyber attacks?
So, yes. So, before I jump into naming those few products, I would really like to mention that. So, it's always a single vulnerability away that an attack can be initiated. So, I think we always need to be on top of an organization detecting capabilities and attacks containing capabilities, responding and remediations. And when I say those things, it's literally thinking about having the right processes in place. Naming a few is vulnerability management. So,
Yep.
without even or before even thinking about a product or a tool, we should have those processes in place that if someday there is a 0 day vulnerability, which is so 0 day vulnerability, for those who do not know about it, is something that needs to be fixed ASAP. It's like it could harm you in a second.
Yeah.
So, if you do not have those vulnerability identification mechanisms or vulnerability remediation mechanisms in place, there is no technology or no products that's going to be of huge help. So, having the right set of processes in place is the first key to success of avoiding those attacks. The next one that I wanted to bring up in terms of these processes itself is having a capability around behavioral anomaly detection or real time monitoring, where it all comes back to collecting logs from all the machines, from all the software that they are running from, and inputting them into your security incident and event monitoring system so that your incident response team can be watching your environment to see if something anomalous or malicious is going on in your environment before it could even go to those products or tools.
All
So I
right.
think having that having the right processes and having the right detection versus response versus remediation mechanism is the first step. Now, when we start thinking about, okay, how do we, what kind of tools can we use to collect those logs? There are a lot tools that are out there in market. Naming a few is a Splunk, or even looking at services from companies like Dragos, having these monitoring capabilities, or just the BAD, which is behavioral anomaly detection, could be possible from the tools like Cyberlens, or even there are two other vendors that I'm really a huge fan of. It's Clarity and Armis, and I can chat. I don't know if can you see my ping here? I can actually just put them all in here.
Maybe I can just share the link once I guess once I can always put the link in the show notes, so they should be able to see it later on as well.
Okay,
I can get
great.
the links
Yeah.
from you.
So I think tools like that will give you capabilities to not only see what IPs are actually exposed in your OT environment, but also will give you capability to keep an eye on the malicious activity that might be going on in your network, or having those logs coming in from the firewalls would actually let you see if there is something that you didn't want to welcome into your environment. Is it still coming? Have we not set up the right rules into the firewalls? So I think it's being more proactive and then reactive. That's that I have seen becoming successful in operational environment, than
Yep.
having like tons of technologies, but losing on, okay, what to do with these.
Oh, I love the way you answered this question. Kind of, you kind of took a step back and kind of went with what are the almost a data point that they should already be collecting before you even go down the path of doing
Hmm.
a what product or solution should I be looking for. And I think just the last part to Dr. Abdullah's question around
Yeah.
how effective these are, and I just add another lens to this,
Yes,
because in an
please.
IT environment, incident response is like, oh yeah, I mean, there's an incident plan. Everyone's got like a DR exercise that happens there once a year. So, well, I guess hopefully once a year, and people kind of know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I imagine in a IT or OT environment,
Mhm.
are those things still applicable? Like people actually make someone in, I guess, energy sector, or someone who switches on, switch off energy, or like collect current in our houses,
Yeah.
for them to be involved in a security awareness, or like I think for me, because the effectiveness of this tool can only go to some point.
Mhm.
Like if an attack has happened
Yeah.
and you've been collecting all these logs and everything,
Right.
are there people doing some kind of training for, I guess, for cyber safety as well to make these
Yes.
effective?
Absolutely. So I think so there are teams that are always developed in the background to not only see what's going on in the environment, but also what are the requirements that an incident response team may have to make those logs more meaningful, or to tune those logs based on some intelligence that could be added on top of the logs, and then making them more useful so that we can get alert in a much proactive manner. So once like just talking from the incident response team standpoint, I think the most valuable thing that they could get out of the logs is, firstly, like I mentioned, how well tuned are those? Secondly, how timely can they generate those alerts to actually alert the incident response team, okay, there is an active intrusion going on in your environment. And it could again be a very simple phishing campaign or phishing attack that could be going on in an environment, because everything just starts with the candy. And when you get into being a sugar patient, you do not know, because it's something, it's a lot that's going on in a body. And that's, I use this analogy a lot because it's so simple to understand that how, or how fast things can spread depending upon how strong your environment is actually going to drive all those processes or tools or products that you may have to ensure security in your environment.
All right. So I guess to your point, it's a combination of, so for these solutions and products to be effective, it's a combination of having the right processes, right data points, right
Absolutely.
I guess right education of cyber safety as well, so that everyone can work in harmony, for lack of a better word, I guess.
And sorry, I think I missed one part of your question, which is having the field people be aware
Oh,
of the
yeah.
cyber things as well.
Yeah.
Just sorry about that. Yeah. So I think we cannot expect them to be coming to us and say, hey, I just encrypted this mechanism over here just to make it secure. No, I think the expectations are different from them in terms of, okay, we need to be smart enough to understand if people are trying to social engineer us. We need to be smart enough to understand if somebody on the field is actually bringing a laptop from outside. Either there is something that, either there is a complete unintentional um, thing that's going on in the person's mind, or there is something 100% malicious. But due care of security would actually go and ask that person, hey, why are you bringing this laptop in? It's not allowed. So I think just training them or making them aware of, from a standpoint of, okay, what is allowed versus not allowed to bring into the field or into the process control, sorry, the control room, where, from where all the devices are controlled to drive the operational environment. Or
Yeah.
even like the smallest example I told, USB device, right? Or even
Yeah.
if on a in a computer sitting in a control room device, if the computer is actually giving you notification that your anti-malware is getting expired, you better act on it.
Oh, yeah. Actually, the funny thing, yeah, you're right. Because I'm just thinking I just put myself in the mind of a worker
Yeah,
in one of those industries, and I'm like, that doesn't affect my job day to day. Why would I care
just
about
basic
updating
things.
malware? Yeah.
Basic things. And I think it wouldn't hurt to actually have somebody to, give them a refresher kind of course every probably 3 months, or it depends like what kind of an environment that industry may be in. Like it differs from industry to industry as well. But I think
Yep.
having those refresher courses just from a basic level, like I said, the social engineering aspects to it, or people bringing in devices from outside, or even keeping their machines up to date with antivirus or anti-malwares, right, are the right things to do, and they all become part of that due care
Yep.
for security.
That's awesome, and I think it's a great answer, because I feel like there's so much similarity, at the same time there's subtle differences between the way a regular IT environment works, whereas an OT environment is almost like it's a sibling of IT, but with just its own nuances, I guess. There its own character.
And I
Um, uh,
think, like let me please iterate my like really important point. The impact is huge. It's human life we are talking about right now, right?
yeah,
It's the environment, the nature that might get disturbed. Like if a gas pipeline were to burst because of a cyber attack, there is nothing worse than that, right? Because it's not going to impact loss in terms of a cost or money, but it's going to disrupt our whole environment, right? It's gonna
yeah,
make our air poisonous. Let's just put it that way.
yeah. And I think the worst case scenario, and how real these things could be, is that energy example that you would like, the nuclear example that we were talking about earlier, where I think it was just I think the specifics of it were around how the machine was working on the calculation of how quickly a fusion or a fusion or like a reaction was happening between nuclear, or I guess that chemical body, and it could
Yeah,
just explode the whole plant. And then there was this whole concept around the fact that something as small as I could lose power to my house, or not
yeah,
just my house, but my entire suburb or my entire state. Like
yeah.
it's like it's something that affects every day to day person. Whereas an IT environment are usually like, oh, I can't log into Facebook. Big deal.
And I think the nuclear, I totally agree. And the nuclear example that I was trying to recall was the Chernobyl. I
Oh yeah,
recently like refreshed my memory just this year's beginning with my friends in Toronto. We watched this series on Netflix, and I was like, whoa. To me, it was like literally not being compliant,
interesting.
and it
The
just
Chernobyl
caused
incident.
like a havoc, the huge catastrophe that's still not fully recovered.
Oh wow, yeah, I think we're still suffering from it as well. I
Yeah.
think it's probably a good segue into this as well, because almost like, even though we're talking about the existing challenges, there are some new things coming up in this space as well. We touched on IoT just before as well.
Mhm.
I would love to hear a bit more about the relevance of IoT, or how important is IoT getting in this space.
Yep. So I think it has great relevance with IoT and the industries of future, where we can see smart industries or smart factories developing per se, where things that are so device or machine oriented these days could be made smart or smarter, in the sense of, again, coming back to my previous point, introducing 5G long term evolution, or the LTE, in our common the usage of language, and other
Hmm.
edge technologies to get data faster in and out to those machines. And that's exactly where artificial intelligence is actually going to play a very, very big role in doing advanced analytics in the background, so that the response time of that data coming in and going out of those machines on cloud, or just in that IoT environment, now can go faster to back to those machines and create more productivity out of it. So that's the best
Oh,
example uh, from a
right.
manufacturing point of view that I could provide.
Yeah, no, that's a great example. I think it's Um, we've spoken about a few different topics around OT and IT,
Mhm.
and I've got a few folks in this audience that I have
Yeah.
who are cybersecurity students as well, and
Oh,
or
great.
people who are looking into moving into cybersecurity. What kind of
Interesting.
skill set would you recommend for them? Because obviously we don't talk much about SCADA networks and OT
No.
networks in uni. So what kind of skill sets should they be, like someone who's interested in this field?
Yeah.
Would love to work for a nuclear plant, cybersecurity.
Yeah.
I don't know why I keep thinking of nuclear plants, but maybe it's a
You
it's
did
a.
you watch something on nuclear last night,
I know. I
Ashish?
feel like I probably should think of a better example, but I keep thinking of a nuclear plant because
Let's.
that's
I think
what's the worst case scenario? Nuclear plant. That's like,
I know, and the easiest one is cereal making company. I always use
oh
this
yeah.
example of cereal making
Uh,
company. Kellogg's. You eat Kellogg's every
Actually,
day.
that's a good one. Yeah. What if I
Yeah.
want to work for Kellogg's cybersecurity? What kind of skill set? Obviously, outside of the uni, the basics. To your point about triad, the basic information security triads,
Yeah.
CIA.
Right.
What else am I looking for? Are there certifications or things that
Yeah.
people can learn in this space?
Absolutely. So I think first things first, always whenever you are trying to make decisions in your career, always meet with people. Let's say you're trying to get into cybersecurity in for OT, or you're trying to get into cybersecurity, let's say for Tesla. So I think the best way of going forward is to actually meet with some people from those industries, who could actually, like, maybe just go through their LinkedIn profiles, or just research a little bit of what they're doing in terms of clearing up your expectations coming out of the job, because do not let you wait for those surprises to happen when you would have completed your 4 years of, or howsoever long years of education, and then getting into knowing something. Because
Yep.
not that I made a wrong choice or anything, but it's funny how so I belong to a very middle class family from India, and I was just told to do great things in life, but nobody defined that great for me. So always be on top of defining that great to yourself by doing a little bit research and meeting common people about that. So
Uh,
moving on to the actual question here,
yeah.
certifications. So I think first things first, I think we should always start from understanding the industry itself, for which I think for freshmen, I would suggest taking up some courses around in like core engineering or manufacturing, or if some people are really, really into it and they have figured out that great for themselves, I think going for industrial engineering as their uh, concentration would be a good idea. So
Hmm.
just probably starting with that to understand the industry, and then connecting it with to the cybersecurity, where I think when I completed my CISSP, it was one of the greatest things to do, because not only it's so much connected to each and every industry, but it actually gives you a very basic and ground level introduction of security, to an extent that it could be connected to anything. But
Interesting.
coming back to just OT specific certifications, yes, there are a couple. So the Global Industrial Accreditation Certification actually provides GICSP, which is Global Industrial Certification for Security Professionals.
Yeah.
So I think that could be a great thing to start with. And then
Interesting.
probably understanding some underlying standards or frameworks. NIST, actually the National Institute of Standards and Technology, it actually covers all various aspects of the right controls for OT environment, and probably having a nice understanding of that also would not hurt, in addition to like very laser focused industrial and automation controls, which is ISA or IEC 62443. It's like one of the very great standards that I have seen getting used in industries like these to define their control systems. And I think last but not least, Center for Internet Security, the CIS top 20 controls, and also now when cloud is so hot and live, I think the Cloud Security Alliance Cloud Control Matrix also
Yeah.
would be a good idea to understand and tie those controls back to OT.
Awesome. And I think that's a great answer. I'll put the certificates and the references into the show notes as well so people can follow up and come back. And it's always good to get into technical questions and get into the greater things, but it's always good to have some fun questions in the episode as well.
Oh, yes,
And
I can't wait for it. I feel like today I'm working. What did you do to me, Ashish?
I
No, but
know. I
it's
feel
a
like I
great
should have
chat.
just like we should have
I'm
started with
loving
this,
it.
but yeah, let's just come back down and relax
Yes.
the mood a bit more. I've only got three questions, so
Oh,
yeah, so I could go the whole day, but I thought why not start with three, and I'll
yes,
let
please.
everyone else connect with you to get to know you a bit more. The
Yes.
first one is, what do you spend most time on when you're not working on cloud or technology, or in your case, OT networks, I guess.
I think I would say three things. I love cooking.
Nice.
And I bake a lot, like a lot. So I'm into French and English bakes mostly. And I also have started doing this, so you order stuff from these various vendors like Chef Plates and stuff like that. And they'll give you like all the grocery to your doorstep. And all you need to do is follow the recipe and try those things. So what I'm doing these days, I'm literally trying international foods every day. I had like a Korean jakashui noodles for my brunch today. So I'm a
Was
big
like a
foodie.
black noodle? Is that what that is?
It's not. It's like a Korean spiced noodle. It's
All
amazing.
right.
I actually put it on my Instagram as well. So
There you
by
go.
all
People should follow you
means,
on Instagram just to find out. It's
yes.
like,
I don't really mind. Yeah, but I like. And the funny fact is, me and my husband are so much into food. We make so much, and we end up eating it all by ourselves as well.
fair enough. It's not a bad thing. It's actually not a bad thing to do, to be able to do that, you know. And I think
But
it's
I
a
think
it's a
too much of
great.
sweets can be a bad thing too, right? Like,
Well, you know, it's Saturday at your end, Sunday my
right.
end. Why not, right? The next question is kind of
Yes,
related
please.
as well. What is something
Oh,
that you're
sorry.
proud of?
Actually, sorry, sorry,
Yeah.
sorry. I also love sleeping and playing with my daughter. Those are the three things.
Fair enough. I think that's a great way to spend time to switch off from technology and OT
Yes.
networks in general.
Yeah.
The next question that I have is, what is something that you're proud of but is not on your social media?
Oh, okay. Uh, I not on my social media, and I'm proud of.
Wait, yeah, I think your family's already on social
Oh,
media.
I think probably my yes, they are, but I think I actually am sharing a community group. Like they just made me a chairman for a community group, and probably this is the first ever time I'm ever talking about this, other than my husband. It's just that I never got a chance, so probably that and something.
But can you
Probably.
talk about it? Like, what is it? Now I'm curious. What is this thing that
Well,
you?
yeah. So
Congratulations, by the way, being
yes, thank you very much.
chairman.
I don't think I can take the name of the company, but I can definitely talk about. So they recently made me a chairperson of driving their operational technology environment and the underlying security controls
Wow, that's a
in
big
that
deal.
industry specific. Yes, it actually came to a big surprise to me as well one fine morning, and they're like, hey, you know what, we are actually making you a chairperson. Like, okay. That's
Thank
nice,
you.
but I know, right? So I don't think I ever got a chance to share this with my family, and I'm just realizing it. So
Well,
that's
this is
probably,
exclusive now. This is exclusive. If your family
yeah,
wants to
it's
find out, they
okay.
can come and check out the
They,
show.
yes, they would probably see it tomorrow morning, and they're like, "Hey, why didn't you tell us?" Like, it's okay, I forgot.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And I think the last question over here is right up your alley. What's your favorite cuisine or restaurant that you can share?
Oh, okay. So I think my favorite cuisine is definitely Indian and restaurant. Okay, you're gonna laugh about it, but it's my own kitchen because I really find it so hard to find good Indian food in restaurants because they just, to me, it just sounds like they just put all the spices into everything and everything tastes similar to me. But I don't like my food that way. I like different flavors in, if I have like five things in front of me, I really want to make sure that all five things are exclusively differently flavored. So I would say it's my own
Oh,
kitchen or my mama's kitchen. So
yeah.
that would be my most honest answer.
Wow. And it's like having food with you would be like having a MasterChef experience with everything. Like different plates have different flavors going on. By the way,
I don't want to.
Dr. Abdullah just says congratulations as well. By the way, I just want to
Thank you
say
very much, doctor. And thank you again for your time today
that.
to hear my blabbering.
No, it was really helpful, and I think it's a great introduction for OT and IT and how even that industry is being affected by. And I think the biggest takeaway for me is honestly the IoT and 5G part.
Yeah.
Dr. Abdul loves Indian food as well. Like, great,
Oh, yay. I
we have
know.
more people.
Nothing can beat it. I know, right? And, most welcome to anytime visit Calgary. And my house is definitely an open cottage. I would love to
Oh,
host
there
you.
you go. There's like
Yes.
open restaurant for master chefs, like more critique going on. But
We
I
love
just
hosting parties, Ashish. I'm not lying.
oh,
Yeah.
there you go. I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time out. I really appreciate it. It's been very informative for me personally, and I'm sure for other people as well. Where can they reach you for further questions? Like,
I think
what are your
LinkedIn is the
socials?
best way because yes, I'm active on Instagram, but not to an extent that I would read messages there. But
Right.
LinkedIn is something that I would definitely respond to anybody
Perfect.
who's
Yeah,
who's reaching
that's
out to.
awesome. And I
And
think I'll leave the yep. Go on.
so, sorry, I was just saying that that this is also something that I do aside my job is actually mentoring students and people to find their career paths and make the right decisions. So I'll be more than glad to help anyone or each one of you who are listening to this podcast today.
Awesome. Yeah, that'll be pretty cool because I'm getting mentorship for how to get into the OT space is something really interesting because
Yep.
it people kind of forget that it's actually an equally big industry outside of just the regular IT of Facebook, LinkedIn, and things
Yeah.
like that. There's so much more. Like I think we have everything around us. Even if you look around in your own house, there is
Right.
so much coming from that industry, like your
Oh,
power, your
absolutely.
gas, everything that's like around you,
Another
right?
thing that I like keep telling people that hey, you will never be mad at when your internet will be gone, but you will be like on your toes if your electricity is not in the house. So
Yep,
let's just
yep,
think it
that is
that way.
true.
And I think not only OT, I have my hands and toes into everything but digital forensics in
Hmm.
security. So I mean, I can definitely talk about more things with whosoever is interested in that background because that's what my experience has given me, like a very broad
Oh,
experience in security. Yeah.
you can expect a flood storm of people coming up to you for mentorship.
I
That's
will be,
awesome.
yes.
Thank you so much for your time,
But
Parul.
Ashish, let me take this opportunity to thank you as well.
Oh
I'm
no.
one of the very biggest fans of your podcast. Like, I know I haven't gone through the last one, like the last 30 minutes, and I'm still trying to get to it. It's just like I'm sometimes I find it hard to find time from my sleeping, playing with my baby, and baking. But I'm gonna
Fair enough.
complete that for sure. So please keep up
Appreciate
doing these
that.
awesome podcasts, and keep making difference in people's lives this way. This is
Thank
really
you.
great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It means a lot. Thank you so much for this. And again, thank you so much for your time. I think the audience will appreciate it. I loved the fact that you loved the podcast as well. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for appreciating it. It's a good plug for the podcast as well. But it's awesome. I get to learn quite a bit from people like yourself. So
Yes.
it's actually still a two-way street. But thank you so much for your time.
Yes.
And for
Anytime,
anyone who,
Ashish. It's my pleasure.
yeah, and I'll see everyone else in the next episode.
All right. Bye bye, everyone.